Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEPLabs Radio. Thanks for stopping by, appreciate it. So today I want to share something with you guys that I got recently. This is an iFixit soldering iron from the folks at iFixit.com. I purchased this with my own money. This was not sent to me for review. This is something I bought because I wanted it. So this is a soldering iron, and this is a USB powered soldering iron. Let's take a look at it. I've already had the box open. I just put everything back in it for the beauty shot. There it is. Okay. So inside the box we have a quick start and hints cheat sheet. We have a piece of cardboard that says this is part of the FixHub Power Series, and we'll talk more about the FixHub in a little bit. We have a user's guide in English and a user's guide en français. We're not going to use that because je ne parle français mais un petit peu. And that was the extent of all the French I remember from school. And then we have the actual soldering iron. The soldering iron, let's take a look at it first, is, as I mentioned, USB-C powered. It has some very interesting features. So first of all, it has a heat-resistant cap. You can put the cap back on this immediately after using it, because it is metal lined, and they tell you you can do that in the manual. It also has, of course, a little stand, so you can just slide the iron in there when you're not using it and pull it out, do your thing, and put it back. Another excellent feature on this iron is it has a LED ring here as a visual indicator of the status of the soldering iron. So if the ring is blue, the soldering iron is cool to the touch. You can pick it up, you can touch it by the shiny metal parts, good to go. If the ring is purple, it is heating up or cooling off and it's still too hot for you to put your fingers on. And then if it's orange, it is in business mode and way too hot for you to touch. So I thought that was an excellent feature. The soldering iron features an auto cool down thing. After 30 seconds, it will drop its temperature. After 60 seconds, it will cut off. We're going to see how long it takes to heat up to full temperature on it as well. So I think that's a pretty neat idea. The iron itself is USB-C, and it comes with this cable, which is a very stout USB-C cable. And the way this works is you plug it in there, and then this blue sleeve slides down and locks into place so that the iron is not going to come unplugged, at least from the business end while you're working. Of course, it has a rubber cool grip to hold while you're using it. You should not hold it by the metal part, because if it starts to smell like chicken, you're holding it wrong. I've seen AI images online of someone using a soldering iron and holding it like a pencil way down here. And I always thought at least, AI could kind of figure out that was a bad thing, but apparently not. The tips are easy swap out. This comes with one tip. It is a very small chisel tip. The tips literally just pull straight out. They are connected via what is that, a 1/8" TRS-style connector here on the end. And then the tips are labeled. Of course, they say iFixit on them. And it's a bevel tip, 1.5 millimeters would be my guess is what that means. And it gives you the voltage range and the temperature range over here in very tiny print that I can barely see, and I know the camera's not picking it up. And there are multiple tips available. This is the one that came with it. This is probably the one I would use most of the time anyway. To put it back in there, we just slide it in. Doesn't matter which way you put it in, push, click, and you're good to go. So that is the soldering iron. The documentation is really good. The manual goes through the usual things that a manual goes through. A quick start, the indications on the color rings right here. Blue is good, purple no, orange definitely not. An interesting feature about this iron, so there is another piece that is not sold with this called the FixHub, which I mentioned earlier. And the FixHub is a wall-powered stand setup deal that this will plug into. And if you're using the FixHub, you can change the temperature of the soldering iron via the FixHub. If you're just using a USB power source, then the iron defaults to 350 degrees centigrade, which is 600 and something Fahrenheit, I don't remember exactly. And it says that in the manual, which for me, that is the temperature. I have a Veller, or do you say Weller, soldering station over here that is AC powered, and it's on 350 most of the time anyway. Unless I'm soldering something big and chunky like a PL259 connector, it stays on 350. So that's perfect for me for this kind of deal right here. I mentioned USB-C power. This will run obviously off their own FixHub, which is again sold separately. But this will run off of a USB power brick or a battery pack or whatever. It needs to be PD rated and provide at least 20 watts of output power to run the soldering iron correctly. And I assume it's going to check when you plug it in if you have enough beans to make it work. But that is the rating for it, is a 20 watt PD capable power supply, whether it's a brick or a wall wart. Important safety information: wear eye protection, don't lick the shiny metal part. It goes through the various parts and pieces here, and again indicates what everything is. How to change the tip, which I've already demonstrated, and I mean, it's pretty darn easy. Now, this is the cheat sheet that iFixit sent, and one side is an inspirational poster for your shack. Never take broken for an answer. Fight the power, man. You are the power. And it has a breakout over here of all the parts in the actual soldering iron. But on the other side, if you're not interested in inspirational posters, is a cheat sheet for some technique for soldering. And if you're new to soldering, this is great information. It's actually very useful, and in my opinion, much more useful than telling me don't lick the shiny metal parts and don't solder live circuits. So here, before you start, ventilation and eye protection. Preheat your surface. This is a good takeaway right here. If you're new to soldering or you have trouble having consistent solders, this is the major point to good solders right here. Heat up what you're trying to solder to before you start slopping solder all over it. You want to get the part hot first and then apply the solder to the hot part with the hot iron, and then the solder will bond to the metal pieces. Also, using flux helps this process immensely. And they're telling you let the solder flow into the joint and fill contact area. Wires, through holes, and surface mounts all need the solder to flow and absorb into the joints. And there is nothing so satisfying as seeing solder flow in and fill up a joint like it's supposed to. Then allow everything to cool and make sure that it looks shiny and good. This gives you a couple of examples here of what a good solder joint on a through-hole connector looks like and what a correctly soldered wire connection looks like. And then some examples of what your solders should not look like. And if they do, you need to lather, rinse, and repeat. On the other side, it talks about they prefer lead-based solder. I totally agree with this. I think I had a roll of lead-free solder and had very mixed results with it until Hollywood yelled at me and I threw the lead-free solder away. You may not be able to use leaded solder depending on where you live. I don't have that problem here, so I only have Kester lead solder. A very important takeaway from the cheat sheet here: high heat for short times is better than low heat for a long amount of time. I have broken things low these many years past because I didn't have the iron hot enough and I kept it on the part entirely too long, heated up the part, and broke it. So high heat, get on there, get it hot, get her done, get out. And then about how to clean your soldering iron: either use a wet sponge or brass wool. They show a picture of what would be brass wool here. I'm a brass wool guy. Many of you out there in YouTube land converted me to brass wool because I used to use the damp sponge thing. No more. And you can buy a 6-pack of brass wool for about $3 on Amazon and always have clean, fresh brass wool available, as opposed to having to get water to carry it out to your shop that doesn't have running water so you can dampen the sponge. Just saying. And flux the contact areas and tin your tip before you put it away. You want to put solder back on the tip of the iron. so that the tip of the iron is not exposed to the elements. It's covered with a nice blob of solder, which will not let the tip oxidize, because as this oxidizes, its ability to conduct heat dramatically falls off, and you don't want that to happen. So when you're done, cover it with solder, pull the power, let it cool off, and then store it. All right, so that comes with it. And again, you have an inspirational poster should you so desire. I do want to talk real quickly about iFixit. If you've never heard of iFixit, they have a website, iFixit.com, which is not a sponsor on this video. And there are repair guides, teardown guides for hundreds, if not thousands, of electronic devices, cell phones, tablets, laptops, etc., on their website, broken down in many cases by specific model number, how to replace the memory on a Dell yada yada laptop, or how to replace a battery in an iPhone or an Android or a Samsung or whatever. Excellent resource for repairing stuff, and iFixit is a leading proponent of right to repair, and they typically will buy electronics and do a complete teardown, and that information from that teardown they publish on their website, as well as how easy it was for them to get into the various pieces and parts of the device. I remember a particular version of iPhone, I don't remember which iPhone, the 5 or the 6, it's been a minute, where Apple introduced the pentalobe screw. And that was a screw that nobody had a screwdriver for until iFixit came out with one, and you could actually buy a pentalobe, a 5-sided screwdriver from iFixit. They sell toolkits of various sizes and sorts designed for different sorts of electronics repair. It's an outstanding resource. If they would like to sponsor me, I would certainly be open to it. Just saying, iFixit. However, whether you get this soldering iron or not, it is worth your time to go look at their website, because they are an outstanding resource for repairability on thousands of electronic items. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is put some electricity to this thing and fire her up. All right, before we get started with the soldering, I did want to share a few other things with you. This is rosin flux paste. This is what I use. It comes in this little can, that goo, and you put that on the tip of your iron, and it helps solder flow, and you also use it to clean the tip of your iron. This is brass wool, and I will put links for all this stuff in the description below. This is what I use to clean the soldering iron. You put the tip in there and run it around and clean the goo off of it. A clean soldering iron works way better than a dirty soldering iron, believe me. This is a roll of Kester solder. I think this is 6733. Solder comes in different mixes. You can also get this in different diameters of solder. This is the fairly small stuff, which is what I use for most electronics. And this is like a 1-pound roll of leaded solder. And again, link in the description below. None of this stuff is sponsored. Any Amazon links will be affiliate links. It helps out the channel. It does not cost you any extra. So this is recommended by Hollywood, that specific brand, and that's a 3D printed roll holder, and there's about 100 different variations of this on Thingiverse and Printables and Maker World and etc. And the little plastic roller thing fell out when I pulled this down. There we go. And then this is the iFixit toolkit that I have. My wife bought this for me as a gift several years ago. And it comes with an assortment of things, tweezers, spudgers, which is like a hard plastic pry tool for getting into stuff without scratching it. Some of the tools are actually not in here. They're in a stand over to the side. It comes with pieces to disassemble iPhone screens, grounding strap. And they have, iFixit has various arrangements of toolkits. Then here we have a screwdriver, an extension bit, socket, and then pretty much every kind of tiny electronic screw and hex nut you can imagine to go with the driver. And that goes in there. And then on the other side we have more tools over here, including a ruler and a caliper and a X-Acto knife kind of deal, as well as metal spudgers and pry tools over there. So it's a great kit, and they make several of these. This is an older kit. There are much newer ones, and I'll put a link to this or its equivalent in the description below as well. But highly recommend that you have this in your ham shack, because I guarantee you can get into pretty much anything short of swapping out engine mounts with this kit. I just thought I'd share that with you since I was talking about iFixit earlier. This is another thing I use all the time, and if you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. I don't know what you want to call these. Generically, I would call it helping hands. And it comes with 4 magnetic arms, 2 short ones and 2 long ones that you can bend and shape to however you want, with alligator clips on the end, fastened down so they don't come loose, to hold boards or small parts or whatever. And again, there's 4 of those, 2 tall ones and 2 shorter ones. It also has, with this particular one, and again, link in the description below, to hold boards. These are magnetic little points, similar to paint points, if you've ever heard of that term. So these are for holding a board, and you can do it multiple ways. Some boards have little holes at the corners, so you just line them up with these. Or you can do what I'm going to do here, and we set this so this sits on the little lip of these things, like so, and it ain't going nowhere. And that is an outstanding piece of kit. Either that or the arms, either one would work. And as an emergency backup for stuff, blue tack, putty, whatever this stuff is called, that like you can use to hang pictures. This will also stick to boards, and you can fasten boards in place with this kind of stuff if one of these methods does not work for you. I have the soldering iron plugged into my Charge battery pack. Yeah, Charge. That's actually the name, Charge. And this is an excellent battery pack. I can't remember the complete specs on this thing off the top of my head, but it'll recharge my MacBook Pro, so it covers, yeah, it's got high output power. It's 140 watts potentially, and I think it's actually more. So it will absolutely run the soldering iron. This is a great battery pack. I carry this with me as in my laptop bag. I have actually live streamed with the laptop plugged into this and ran a live stream for Coffee and Ham Radios with this as the only power for the laptop. The beauty of this also is it shows you runtime left, what your charge level is on the battery, how much power that you're using, or if you're charging this, how much power you're charging it with. So you got a good idea of how much battery time you have left. It is not the most lightweight battery pack in the world. It probably weighs about 2 pounds, I'd guess. 1.5 pounds, something like that. But it's got enough juice, again, to run a laptop. So I have a 17-inch MacBook Pro, runs it like a champ. So we've got our soldering iron plugged into this guy. I haven't tinned this yet, so we're going to do that. And you want to do this pretty much every time you use the soldering iron. So we are plugged in, and we're going to turn this guy on. All right, so it is powered on, and you can see it's blue, which means it's still cool to the touch. There we go. So now it's purple and orange, and that means it's ready to solder. So let's get this guy and tin him. So we're going to dip it in some solder paste. We're going to not solder our cord. Let's move this out of the way. Get up here. Yep, it's melting the solder paste, and so we're going to tin this guy by running solder all over him. And this is why you should have ventilation. And I normally do have ventilation on, but it's loud and you couldn't hear me talk over it. So I'm taking one for the team here. And we'll clean it. Put a little more flux on it. So this is just prep. It looks like this iron had been pre-tinned to some extent, but that's not going to hurt it. So now we're ready to go. Now this isn't really a soldering demonstration video, and I don't want to get into all of that, but what we're going to do is give it a shot. And as fast as it heated up to orange, I feel pretty confident that we are doing the deed quite well here. And I'm watching the power, and it seems to be pulsing. It'll go to 20 watts of input power, and then it'll drop back. We set that where you can see it, where it'll drop back as it keeps the temperature, keeps the temp up. And you can see there that we're orange on the LED band. And this is our on-off switch back here. So it's orange, which indicates it's on. If I don't move the soldering iron a lot, it will turn itself off. If I have one complaint about this soldering iron, is that the cord, I wish it was a little longer. So we have a component here. I'm going to solder on this board. This is a project kit I have from something that I haven't gotten around to doing yet. So let me try and find there we go, a resistor spot. And I'm going to shove this resistor in it. Don't even know if it's the right one. Doesn't matter at this point, because I honestly don't remember what this kit is for. So when you're putting components in, what I like to do, especially with components with legs like the resistor has, then I'll come here on the back side and I'll kind of spread the legs out so I can now set it down and work on it without it falling through, you know, without the component falling out, kind of thing. And we'll run it in there, give it a quick wipe. We'll pull our solder up, and I'm putting the tip on the leg of the resistor and the little through hole. And I'm just touching the solder to it. And I've got a little lump that's nice and shiny. I'll bring that in for a closer view. And I need my magnifying lamp, but it's hard to use it and film at the same time. And it casts harsh shadows. Yep, there we go. All right, I'm going to clean it. Wipe it around in the brass wool. Put a little more solder on it. Set that out of the way. And I'm going to set it down. I'm on a silicone mat. Also something I highly recommend. This will not burn. And then that should shut off here in a few seconds. And I can just turn it off at this point anyway. And you can see here fairly well that I have shiny little pyramids of solder on the component, and it ain't coming out. And if I pull on that, it is not coming out. So what that tells me is the solder has bonded to this, both to the legs of the component and to the little through hole connectors on the board. See, we're pulsing now. That means we're cooling down. And that will turn blue when it's safe to touch. It's still purple. It doesn't look super purple on camera, but it is. So that is the iFixit portable soldering station. I like this. This is something you could use for field day or a POTA or whatever. Keep this and an appropriate battery pack in your kit, and you can fix anything you need to on the fly. I'm going to look online. I suspect there are probably some nice cases available for the iFixit soldering kit. If I can't find one, I'll design one, or I'll just use the stylish cardboard box that it came in to transport it that way and keep it all together. I suspect that I'm going to go out and find more tips. Yeah, that's cooled way down. So that's about all I've got for this. I will put a link for this to iFixit.com in the description below, and all the other equipment that I showed you here, the solder paste, the brass wool, the solder itself, the charge battery pack, the iFixit toolkit. Again, this is not an iFixit commercial. I ain't getting no money from iFixit at all. I will put links to all this stuff in the description below, and any Amazon links, of course, or affiliate links. Doesn't cost you any extra, and it helps out the channel. Guys, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for watching 73. Have a great day.